In this presentation, we will discuss payroll options within QuickBooks and turn on the manual payroll within QuickBooks. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. We'll now process payroll. So to do this, we're going to go into the second payroll file, the more complex file that we're going to have. I'm going to go into our folder. We're going to go into the data files. And this I'm going to take from the QuickBooks file 3. This is going to be the more complex folder, the more complex data. We're actually going to set up payroll in the system. So if you want to work along with this, you can set up a separate file for this, or you can take a look at the backup files. We'll try to provide a backup file so you can go through this process, or you can just watch through it and see the compare and contrasting of the more complex method to possibly the simpler method that we'll be using in our process. Here we have the home page open. We got the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and the open windows list. What we're going to do now is actually set up the payroll as if we were going to process this from the system. Now again, I don't really recommend this in this process to have I recommend a more simplified method here and have external payroll to help us out with that. But I want to compare and contrast to see what payroll would look like if you're going to process this in the system. Note, if you're going to have payroll, you could say turn on payroll over here, and QuickBooks will be more than happy to tell you their payroll options. Note here that we will be, whether we do it internally in QuickBooks or outside, that we're still going to have to pay for some type of payroll option. And the payroll packages will vary. We won't go through all the payroll packages, but note that we have these different options and we're still going to have to pay for some type of payroll in some way. I don't recommend, even if it's 1 or 2 employees, to not do the payroll at all and try to do the payroll manually, as we're going to do here just for an example, because it does get complex, especially if you're not in the same state or country as where the payroll is. Then it could be very difficult to think about how payroll is going to be processed. And so either you want like a full service payroll where QuickBooks is going to take on the liability of it, more of the liability, or take on more of the responsibility and automate more of the process within QuickBooks. Or if that's the case, if we're already paying for a higher amount to do that, it may be better to just take the next step and have someone that will specialize within payroll just to take on and take up that process within it. So those are our options. I'm going to close this out. Just for the demonstration options, we're going to set up the manual payroll. It'll look much the same, and we'll get an idea of what withholdings are and what we would have to do to process this information, the data input that we would enter. But we don't have to pay for the manual method. The difference is that we would have to manually calculate what the withholdings would be. So, which is something we don't typically want to do. It could get complicated, but we'll show you that process. So to open this up, we're going to go to the help up top and go to QuickBooks Desktop Help. You can also click F1 to open that up. And then we're going to type into the help menu the manual payroll. Set up manual payroll. So we want to set up manual payroll and then say OK. And search for that item. We've got I changed it slightly to get rid of the setup and say manual payroll. And then if you say manual payroll and enter, we'll have process payroll manually without a subscription to QuickBooks Desktop Payroll. That's the one we want. We'll select that item. And then if we go through this, we're going to select this hyperlink, which is set up your company file using the manual payroll calculations. So we'll set that up. And then one more time here, if you are sure you want to manually calculate, and again, the QuickBooks doesn't want to do this, one, because QuickBooks wants you to buy their calculation, and 2, that's probably a good recommendation because the manual calculations, as we'll see, it can be a bit complex, but it'll give us an idea of the setup and an idea of what the paid versions will do as well. So we'll set up the payroll here. Now there was an OK option after that, so after we select OK and set that up, we'll go from 2 icons are usually here to what is this 4 icons within the employee's payroll. We're not going to be using the time enter. This would be tracking time. Typically, we wouldn't be tracking time because that's more of a rule-based process system. If we were to process payroll, it would probably be the case that once a month, whenever we pay, or if it was bi-weekly or weekly, that the client would then ask us to process the payroll, which we would then just put into the system and possibly have the client then take the net check that we've told them and possibly our paycheck stubs write the check for their employees, and then we can process basically the withholdings on this side. That would be one method that we can take a look at and help with the processing and calculation of what the payroll should be, what the net check should be. We'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of that method as we go next time. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.